Now, the recent increase in electricity tariff in Nigeria has been the topic of discussion due to impact on consumers. The Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, approved an increase in electricity tariff to reflect the changes in microeconomic indices. Now, this adjustment aims to improve the power sector by providing more revenue for investment in infrastructure and ensuring better service delivery, and also to customers. Now, however, the hike has faced opposition from various groups, including Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, who rejected the proposed 35% raise alongside the tariff increase. The NLC argued that the increase would further burden Nigerians already facing economic challenges. The situation remains dynamic as stakeholders continue to engage in discussions and negotiations regarding the electricity tariff in Nigeria. You're welcome to Inside Today. I am Jumai Manson. I am being joined by Mr. Cadmus Adeke Inade. He is a business consultant and environmentalist. Now, don't go anywhere. The program continues in a bit. Stay tuned. All right, you're welcome back. And if you're just tuning in, this is Inside Today on Global Television. Now, the situation remains dynamic as stakeholders continue to engage in discussions and negotiations regarding the electricity tariff in Nigeria. Many people complain of high cost of living, the fact that it has affected every sector when it comes to the home front, businesses, and individuals who do their daily activities. Now, this hike in electricity tariff, how well is the being when it comes to the well-being of Nigerians? Is it for a cause, or is it under the guise of the removal of subsidy, just like fuel subsidy removal? Now, we'll be talking about it on the program Inside Today, and like I said, I am being joined by Mr. Cadmus Adeke Inade. He is a business consultant and environmentalist, and he'll be throwing more insight, his own well of wisdom when it comes to the electricity hike that we are facing in Nigeria. And if you're out there and you're saying to yourself, this does not concern me, it concerns the Band A people who have 20 hours light. Well, you are wrong, because this actually affects each and every one of us, because we have the Band A, Band B, Band C, and it depends on which category you fall in. Now, it would be an easy peasy when it comes to if you are in band A and you actually enjoy 20 hours light, I don't think there will be any complaint when it comes to an issue like this. Of course, you have 20 hours light to rig around all the things that you need to do when it comes to the home front, when it comes to businesses, and when it comes to preservative, when it comes to preserving the food items which you have. It wouldn't be a problem when you have to pay, because it's not as if you're paying more and getting less for value. You're paying more and getting value for money. There won't be any complaint. Now, this is a very serious issue because a lot of individuals have wondered, what is this band A, band B, and band C all about? And with this hike in electricity, what does it bring to the table for us as Nigerians? Does it remove the high cost of living? Does it make things better? Or is there increment in salaries that we're paying so much when it comes to power? Now, this is a very serious problem. Let's quickly go on a quick break so that our guests can join on the program Inside Today. Stay tuned. All right, you're welcome back to the program Inside Today. And now I am being joined by Mr. Cadmus Adeke Inade. He's a business consultant and environmentalist. All right, you are welcome to the program, Mr. Cadmus. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's great to have you on the program. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you very much for
All right,
having
we're
me
looking
here.
at the hike in electricity tariff. Now, how did the hike factor impact the cost of electricity production and distribution in Nigeria if we look at it critically when it revolves around the high cost of living in which we face at about this point?
Okay. Well, I would say these electricity hike is something that is having a ripple effect on the society and everyone in particular, especially those that are into small and medium scale businesses and even individuals. The reason is because at the moment the petroleum issues has not been helping issues, and now they've increased the electricity tariff. So is a backlash back to back from the government, and it has not been easy on the people. And one thing is very particular about these whole issues. Right from the onset of the transition in the electricity sector, it has been from one increment to another, price increment to another. And the electricity has not even been seen by the people. They are not being consumed by the people. Imagine an area that used to have maybe 6 to 10 hours light, now have just like 3 or 4 hours lightings. And even that lighting, you are not certain if you have it up to the time that you now discover that you're being given, and all of a sudden you've been slammed with an increment in tariff. It's heartbroken. It is disheartening. So I think it is very, very sad to note that the hike has not been very favorable to the masses. It has not been favorable to the Nigerian workers, neither is it favorable to the consumers, and especially the small and medium scale enterprises, because they rely and depend mostly on electricity for their production and their survival. So it has not been really easy.
Yes, of course. It hasn't been. A lot of complaints, a lot of individuals have not been happy about this increment. Even NLC, it's not happy with this increment. It has affected labor, has not been happy. It has affected a lot of things when it comes to businesses, when it comes to the home front, especially when it has to do with Band A, Band B, Band C. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that, of course. Now, what are the specific challenges faced by the Nigerian electricity sector that have necessitated the tariff increase? We're not done with the fuel removal of fuel subsidy. Now, electricity. Of course, when you say the removal of fuel subsidy, many will say, of course, I do not have a car. It doesn't affect me as much as individuals who have cars, who are running businesses. Now, this is electricity. Power affects each and every one of us. So what do you think must have led to these specific challenges that has forced the Nigerian electricity sector to impose this tariff on us?
Okay, well, going back to the drawing board, in 2020, in 2010, when the transition was launched, Nigerians were promised that when the power sector is dismantled from the center, that's from what we know it to be then. It was initially NEPA, Nigerian Electric Power Authority, then it was moved to
Of
Power
course.
Holding Company or
Yes.
Corporation of Nigeria. And afterwards, they said they were not efficient enough. They now brought about the dismantling of the whole sector into various zones and divisions. And when it was launched in 2010, a lot of persons gave a kudos to it that at least we'll be having a fair play that the electricity provision and the distribution will now be made very easy and available to all because each region is now holding on to the grid that supplies their own region. You have the Lagos distribution, you have the Benin distribution company, you have the Port Harcourt distribution and others. So people thought that each distribution zones will be responsible for their own generation as well. But again, it all boils down to the government still holds the key to generation and and supplies and so distribution to the transmission and the people that distribute to the grassroots people to the consumers. So this became um, this called for a concern because if peradventure the smaller discourse were given the opportunity to also generate their own power, I think they would have been able to generate substantially electricity that can carry their own region, knowing fully well the capacity and the megawatts that will be consumed or that is being consumed in their own region. But in this case, it's not like that. The transmission is still being handled by transmission and generation is still being handled by the federal government. The only aspect that is given to individuals, to corporations, and to regional operators, that's the distributors now, is just to distribute and to collect money for their distribution fees and all that. So it doesn't really give them the independence to operate in full. It doesn't really give them that independence to operate in full because they still expect to have um, transmission electricity transmitted to them that they can as well distribute, and any quantity given to them, that's what they distribute to the people. So it becomes very difficult for them to give everybody at the same time in the region lights, electricity, same time. So they started the issue of load shedding. You have 3 hours in the morning, you have 3 hours in the evening, or you have 2 hours in the morning, you have 3 hours like that. And this has not actually helped. So it has been very, very bad on the part of the government, not really giving full autonomy to people, to companies that were sold into these distribution to actually have full grip on what they distribute. And now come to the tariff issue. They have actually given some excuses that because of certain issues, they've not been able to generate
The
power
national
as
grid.
much as they yes into the national grid as much as they could. One of the the reasons they gave was that the exchange in dollar rates, the exchange in dollar rates, exchange in Nigerian and naira to dollar rates, that this has actually affected the production rate of power generation. Secondly, they talked about gas purchases, the purchase of gas, and this also fall back to the exchange rate, the dollar rate, because every purchase done on gases is done in dollars and not in naira. From the market, international and local markets, they buy in dollars and not in naira, which is not supposed to be. We produce
Exactly.
gas in Nigeria. Why are they still flaring gases that are supposed that can be converted to provide electricity for people? That is one question we need to start asking. But that's discussion for another day, because the volume of gases wasted that are flared and contributing to climate change is really, really much. When you go all across the Niger Delta region, you see a lot of refineries, a lot of oil companies flaring gases. And these gases are the same gases that are supposed to be converted in power generation. But no, they don't. Rather, they flare it off and cause a lot of air pollution, increasing temperature and all that. So they should go back to the drawing board and start looking at ways to harness these wasted gases for power generation. But no, they don't. Rather, they buy gases to generate powers. So that is one of the reasons they give, that the purchase of power of gases is also on the increase. Another thing is interest rates. Interest rates on the prices of goods and items used for power generation, for the generation of powers and all that. Also, the payments for technical know-how, expertise, maintenance, and all that were also the reasons they gave. But again, in the past, weren't these factors still on ground? They were on ground, but the
Exactly.
the, the tariff was not increased. So why now?
And things were
Why
moving
now?
really well.
Things were moving well. So why now this increment? You just announced few days ago that the worker salary has been increased. They are jubilating on one side, yet other aspect of the economy is being bastardized. Sorry to use that term, but there are increment in tariffs, there are increment in power generation, there are increment in a lot of sectors,
A
and it's not
lot.
favorable to it's choking the average Nigerian people. They
And that is
cannot even breathe
why,
anymore.
Mr. Cadman, and that is why the NLC is not in agreement with the 35% increment. They're not really
Exactly.
jubilating during the Workers' Day. It wasn't something that they had to celebrate. They were just celebrating life and happy. But talking about that 35% increment, they were not, it was not a palatable experience because they were not so cheery about it, if I would say.
Yeah, if we look at the Nigerian situation today, the increase in the cost of things. When you go to the market today, you go there tomorrow, you'll be so shocked with the difference in prices. How would 35% increment solve the problems and the challenges that Nigerians are facing when foodstuffs and the cost of living is increasing every
Of
second?
course. Of
So
course.
how would they? Now you increase salary from within 28 and 25 and 35%, but you are increasing electricity tariff by 240%. You are
And
increasing import
let's not
duties
forget the removal
by
of fuel subsidy.
46%.
It's still
Then
there.
at the
We're
other
just
end,
trying to adjust to the increment when it comes to the fuel subsidy, the removal of fuel subsidy, and now we're jumping into electricity. This is
so
taking us unaware.
electricity tariff
Is there something that the
is
government, they're not
heartbreaking.
telling us when it comes to all of these
Yes.
hikes? Is there something?
it's it's heartbreaking. Seriously, it's
It is.
heartbreaking.
It
So
is.
we cannot keep absorbing the shock that comes every day. As day breaks, you get one shock or the other. When you open
Exactly.
your TV, you open
Exactly.
your phone, the breaking news you will see is disheartening. So
Yes, it is.
it becomes really, really painful to see that the government no longer puts the people at heart. They no longer create avenues for the people to interact, for stakeholders consultation, for stakeholders meeting. They just wake up in the morning and increase tariffs, change policies that the people are not even aware of. It's painful. It is. It's painful. So
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
it's high time they start looking at ways of harnessing what we have locally like the wasted gases and all that, to provide more
Exactly. Make better use
electricity
of
for
it.
us.
Convert it.
Make it useful, convert it to electricity,
Exactly.
not allow it
Exactly.
to be wasted, not allow it to contribute to the climate change crisis we are already facing in the world. It's high time they put an end to gas flaring, because it's on its own is a big challenge.
It
Community
is.
people are suffering.
A
Community
lot.
people are going through a lot of health challenges as a
Ruben, the
result of
urban
gas flaring.
areas, everyone
Yes,
is complaining.
when these gases can be utilized for energy generation and reduce the level of pollution that goes into the environment daily. So with the excuses they are giving, I don't think those are really concrete enough to increase the tariff. What they would
Oh,
have actually done is to manage what they have on ground and try as much as possible to increase their expertise, because one thing is key. When the expertise is low in terms of a sector, then production tends to go down. When you don't have people that has the knowledge of what and what to do in a sector, you don't have good outputs. So technical know-how is also a challenge that they mentioned. Paying technical experts and all that is another challenge. And most of these experts, they come from outside the countries and they pay them in dollars, not in our local currency. So this becomes a challenge as well. But those are not excuses to choke the masses
yes,
in
exactly.
terms of tariff
I
hike.
like
So
that,
it
Mr.
is not.
Cadmus. It's not an excuse to
It's not.
choke the masses, really, because the masses are being choked. Now, you mentioned, when you were talking, you mentioned transmission, you mentioned the federal government. Now, in line to this, how is the government working to address these challenges and ensure affordable electricity for all Nigerians? That's where the Band A, Band B, Band C category comes in. And can you throw in more light, or is it that the government just sits back and they're not doing anything? They're just like a desical. A colleague of mine says when something is going wrong when it comes to the working class, where someone is supposed to perform and he's not, and there are lapses, it means one person or two individuals are not doing their jobs. Now, when we say that the government is folding their arms and looking at us, or they're working hard day in, day out to address these challenges and ensure affordable electricity for all Nigerians?
Okay, well, I would say, to me, I don't think the government is actually doing anything to attacking these issues of electricity challenges. The reason why I said that is this: there are alternatives that the Nigerian government and our energy sector can look into. There are We have renewables that can provide certain amounts of gigahertz or gigawatts into the electricity grid. But again, we are not looking at those factors. We are not looking at those areas. We are not looking at renewables at all in this country. At the moment, renewables are being done by private sectors, by individuals, by NGOs, by corporations, and by companies, most especially some of these Chinese companies that comes into the countries and start selling rechargeable, selling solar panel lighting, solar rechargeable lanterns and all that, for Nigerians to actually have a way of a means of electricity. I think if the government is really reasonable about this and they want to make electricity available for all, then they should start looking at promoting and supporting renewable energies. They should start looking at ways of harnessing renewable energy systems. They should put in place plans for renewable energy strategies that will help in increasing the Nigerian national grid. For instance, we have a lot of winds, a lot of sun in the northern part of the country, and lesser rains. Places in the upper north. Why not they have places that they can have solar farms, where these solar farms can be used for power generations, and these power generations can this power generated from solar can be logged in back into the national grid to provide electricity for a certain locality, maybe a community or a state or thereabout.
Very true.
That will reduce the pressure of gases that they purchase. That will reduce the pressure on the other aspects of the electricity generation. Again, looking at the coastal regions in Nigeria, going to the shores of Lagos, when you sit by the Eco-Atlantic shores, the wind there alone can blow you off your feet when you're walking by the side. So why not we harness the wind across our coastal environment rather than thinking of building massive infrastructures that will not be useful to the people tomorrow? Why not we start thinking of using the coastal lines for wind vanes, installation of wind vanes that will contribute to the energy sector, that will contribute to the national grid. If 1,000 or 600 mega watts of wind vane installation, one is done across the coastal environment from Eco to maybe the closest coastal environment. They install wind vanes and all that, and the electricity generator that being harnessed and used to power an area in that locality. Won't that be enough to reduce the burden on the government? So these are things the government should start thinking about. It's not that some people don't have these ideas. They have the ideas, but will the government key into these ideas? Will the government key into these strategies? That is another ball game all again. So we need to start looking at alternatives. Except the government start looking at alternative electricity generation means, it will be difficult to actually have a balanced tariff. The tariff will keep increasing by the day. Why? Because there will be there is the probability of increase in gases in the in gas supplies as time goes by. There's probability of an increase in dollar rates, though they are trying to balance it. There's probability. There's probability of increase in importation rates. There's probability of increase in tariffs and all that. So why won't the government start looking at alternative means of power generation in this country, not just relying on gas alone, which is a dirty source of energy?
Yes, it
Fossil
is. Now,
fuel
still
is a
talking
dirty source
about
of energy.
looking
So
at it
why not?
critically, Mr. Cadmus. Now, in your own opinion, you've spoken a lot, and it has made a lot of. You have informed and intimated us when it comes to issues like this. Thinking about it now, in your own opinion, do you think there are any long-term solutions being considered to stabilize electricity tariffs in Nigeria? And if they are, what in your opinion, what do you think it is or it can be?
Well, I would still say this: the long-term solution to these challenges is first and foremost for the government and the power generation companies to start looking at harnessing and reducing, utilizing the gas flares, rechanneling the gas flare, ejecting the gas flares rather than flaring these gases from these companies, these international oil companies and government-owned refineries and all that. Instead of flaring these gases, why not channel these gases and use them for power generation and link these electricity provided in back into the grid? That will provide a level of stability in the electricity and increase the electricity grid. That's one. Secondly, they need to start looking at the alternative, like I spoke earlier. They need to start looking at harnessing renewables, harnessing alternatives. And again, one thing is that the government needs to start supporting companies and corporations that are into renewables installation, production, and importation of renewable items. This is because if there are influx of electricity generating companies in the country, then the reliance and the dependency on the discourse and the discourse across the country will be reduced, because some persons will prefer to go by privately owned power generating house, private owned electricity generating houses, and that will reduce the burden on the government. And again, that will drastically reduce the electricity hike, because there will now be distribution of powers from different sectors, from different distributors, from different power generating house. Just look, for instance, now, when there was the initial introduction of the mobile phone, the GSM, into Nigeria, we had few operators.
Yes,
And
we did.
then, yeah, we had few operators then. And then to have a SIM, to have a mobile SIM, then you'll be looking at, initially you'll be looking at 100,000 plus, and then 100,000 was a huge money. To have a small mobile phone, you'll be looking at hundreds of thousands. And later on it started reducing gradually. And when the communication sector became saturated with different mobile operators, with different companies coming into the sector, now you can even get SIM for free. All you need to do is to get the SIM and register it and recharge and start using it. But then it was not like that. So if the Nigerian electricity sector, energy sector, is saturated with corporations and individuals, there are individuals that will be very interested in investing in the Nigerian electricity sector. So I think the government should give a fair play for investors to start coming into the system, so that this can actually give people the privilege to choose where they can harness their electricity for. And come to think of it, by the time you operate with a private sector, a private owned electricity company, there's no way you can tell them you will not pay your electricity bill, because they'll cut
Of
you off.
course.
They will cut you off. And from what I've seen so far, there have been a lot of corruption in the electricity sector, because there are some places where they don't even have metering. They give you estimated bill for light that you don't even see, for light that you
Or
don't
you
even
don't
use.
even
And
use.
yes, and at the end of the day, you pay exorbitantly for light that you don't even see. And by the time you pay, it gets into somebody's pocket, and it doesn't even get into the distribution company's pockets, or their accounts. So it become there are a lot of things going on in the sector that the government needs to address. Metering is another issue. If meters are provided for people, then people can know that, I can buy 1,000 naira light for this week, and it will carry me for the next 2 weeks. When I'm not at home, I switch
I'll
off my
turn it
light,
off.
I turn off my meter and go home, go to my workplace. When I come back, I switch it off. My unit will remain there. But no, some houses don't even have meters for years.
Very true.
That is because by the time they apply for meters, they will tell them meters are not available. They should just hold on. So it becomes really serious. So I think the government should start thinking of providing metering system, good metering system, that will check and balance the payment of electricity bills, one. And when proper electricity bills are being paid, I don't think there will be need for electricity tariff hike. Why? Because the money will be paid as at when due, and it will get into the coffers of the discourse as at when your bills goes off, your light goes off. Because you cannot tell
Exactly.
me that you want to do a bypass for a metering system that is hung on the pole and everybody sees it, and that is where your light comes in from. You only have your app to recharge your metering system, and at the end of the day you have your light. If you don't buy your you don't pay for your bill, you don't get the light. So
Exactly.
if proper metering system is put in place, I don't think there is need for tariff increase, because every money that comes into the system will be properly accounted for, and they will be channeled to be used for what it's being made for. So the challenge is that when the bills are not being paid properly and they don't get into the proper channels, then there's shortage in the accounting system, in the discourse, and they fail to pay the amount they are supposed to remit back to the government. And this becomes a challenge to the government to pay for gases, to pay for technical know-how, to pay for other rates and all that stuff that they pay for to ensure that there is a proper generation of electricity. So I think these things needs to be put in place.
Yes, well said. You have. Now, talking about all things that need to be put in place, let us look at improvements when it comes to infrastructure and technology. Now, how can these two help in reducing the electricity costs that we faced for especially consumers? If we had proper improvement when it comes to our infrastructures, and of course, when it comes to proper technology, how can it help in reducing electricity costs for consumers?
Well, when we talk about infrastructure, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about having
Right
proper
facilities.
the right facilities that will aid distribution, proper distribution,
Exactly.
and one of those things is proper metering system, like I just mentioned
Yes,
earlier.
you have.
If there is proper metering system, then proper distribution can take place. Secondly, there is need to look at the issues of there's need to look at the issues of energy wastage in terms of the kind of electrical facilities, the electrical equipment and the electrical items we use in this country. In some countries, they've outdated the tungsten lightings that consumes a lot of energies. They've outdated electricity, electrical gadgets that consumes a lot of electricities. Like maybe your iron that consumes a lot of electricity. You have one iron that takes about 20 watts and all that. Now they go into using electricity efficient gadgets like your electricity efficient lighting systems, your efficient ceiling fans, your electricity efficient ACs. There are even ACs now that are inverted control that can be
Very true.
can be controlled by inverters. These are low energy consumed um, electricity gadgets. I think it's high time we start monitoring the gadgets that comes into the country, especially those that are electric, that uses electricity, that consumes electricity. Because by the time you have a lot of gadgets that consumes a lot of electricity, then the electricity that is provided by the distribution companies will not be enough to go round. Imagine a three-bedroom flat having three deep freezers, two fridges, AC is there, ceiling fan is there, and all that in one house. How do you think the consumption of such houses will be like? Very high, right?
Extremely
But
high.
again, extremely high. But again, at the end of the day, you go to some of these houses, they don't even have meters to check what they consume. Rather, the discourse comes and give them
Bill.
bill that is estimated bills, not knowing what is consumed in such apartments. But by the time you have meters, you have metering systems. The meter reads what is consumed per day, and they pay according to what they have consumed. That will reduce their consumption, their usage of certain gadgets in the house. You understand what I'm saying? That will reduce because by the time you have a metering system and you use all those gadgets in the house, and by the time you go to your meter and your bill comes, you are paying like 100K just for 1 month because of what you consume, and your meter is there to show what you have consumed. Then you reduce the gadgets you use in your houses. So those are ways to put technical know-hows into these things. Another thing is to try as much as possible to have people well trained in manning the generation and the power distribution houses. Because some few weeks ago, there were a collapse of the national grid. Every now and then we hear the national grid has collapsed. Now person where they hungry, where they faint? No, that is the question we've been asking ourselves. Is the national grid a human being that is hungry, that needs food, and he didn't get food to eat, that fainted? The national grid has collapsed this week, another week again it has collapsed. Why not we have good technicians and people that maintains and man these things so that there will be proper maintenance and proper checks of these things? Because I know one of the things that makes these grids to collapse is when they are not properly maintained, one, and when a particular grid system is overused and can no longer carry the burdens and the load it has, it collapses. And again, I think the government needs to start looking at building more power generation areas, more power generation houses, because I think the ones we have in the country is not enough to supply electricity all across the country. We might not depend on gas use to get a power generation plant going. We can decide to get power generation plants using solar farms, using wind farms, using hydropower that will not have impact on the community fisheries and community fishing systems, mini
Hmm.
solar dams in many areas. When these infrastructures are put in certain areas, then power generation would be a thing of the past, and
Exactly.
electricity will go all across the country without we having this collapse of one discourse, one grid or the
Power
other.
grid.
Power grid, when there are power grids in different locations across the
Exactly.
country, different regions across the country, supplying different discourse and different distributing outlets, the burdens on one particular power grid becomes lessened. So the government needs to start looking at this rather than investing and putting money into elephant projects that will not have a headway.
Hmm.
So let's start looking at these things. The people need energy to survive.
We
They need
do.
electricity to survive.
We do. We do. We do, Mr. Cadmus. Now, let's still look at this. You spoke about renewables, and then what do you think? What measures are being taken to promote renewable energy sources in Nigeria and potentially lower electricity costs in the future? What do you think about that?
Well, in the past, I've been privileged to attend certain stakeholder meetings with within between the government sectors and some CSO sectors that are promoting and encouraging and supporting the use of renewables in the country. But fortunately enough, the such meetings at the end of the day, the outcome was not very favorable from the side of the government because they are not willing to invest in the private sector in pushing for renewable energies. If you look at the market today, majority of the renewable energy things, products that we see, they are all imported into the countries by one company, one Chinese company, or one company, or one electrical company, or the other. And again, these items, these gadgets, these equipments are not cheap. They are very expensive. Your solar panels are expensive. Your inverters are expensive. Your solar batteries are expensive. Why? Because one, the importation the import duties have been increased by about 46% or thereabout. So how do you encourage or how do small scale and medium scale enterprises that are involved in renewable energies be able to import enough or quality or quantity, high quantity of renewable energy gadgets that can actually help to reduce the electricity challenges? It's difficult. So I think the government needs to come create an avenue for stakeholders involved in the energy sectors to come together, the National Electric Regulation Commission, the National Electricity Supply Industries. They should find a way to link up with stakeholders that are interested in investing in renewable energy system, thereby cutting away, suggesting ways of providing incentives to these people. Incentives in terms of tax waivers, in terms of subsidies for importation of solar and renewable energies, incentives for carrying out their businesses without paying tax at certain period in time, tax waivers. This will encourage people to go into renewable energy sectors more and more. And again, this will provide the energy sector, the electricity sector with um, enough breathing space, because by the time people are having alternatives to electricity, they will no longer concentrate on
Mr. Cadmus, thank you for your view when it comes to the program, talking about the hike in electricity. And of course, Mr. Cadmus Adeke Enade, he is a business consultant and environmentalist, and he has been giving his own, sharing his own well of wisdom when it comes to this particular issue, when it has to do with the power sector, the hike in electricity tariff in view. Let's quickly go on a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll be joined by Michael Edikan. He is in the field, and he'll be getting the opinions of the state of electricity in your own location. Don't go anywhere. Insight Today continues shortly. All right, you're welcome back from that break, and I am still joined by Mr. Cadmus Adeke Enade. And Mr. Cadmus, thank you so much for being a part of Insight today, sharing your well of experience with us. We're really grateful that you came on board on the program today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and of course, Mr. Cadmus Adeke Nade. He is a business consultant and environmentalist. Thank you. Hope we'll call you again for you to share more well of experience with us. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, in the part two of the program Inside Today, I will be joined by Michael Dekan. He is in the field at the moment, and he'll be getting the response of individuals about the electricity in their own location. Let's listen to Michael, and then we'll wrap up the program. Stay tuned.
Like a stubborn helmet that has continued to defy treatment, the Nigerian power sector, which has undergone different level of diagnosis and treatment, appears to be resistant to the adverse of intervention from the public and private sector since the Nigeria attained its independence in 1960. Whatever the situation, the reality today is that many Nigerians do not currently have access to as much power supply as they want. In the Federal Capital Territory, residents react to the current state of power.
The electricity in this area, let me say Nigeria as a whole, the electricity is very, very poor.
I live in Life Camp, and we are under Band A, and we have not been experiencing the 20 hours provision that we are supposed to have. So it has been epileptic, and really we can't do much. We definitely want government to do something about that to improve the electricity supply, and we will really appreciate that.
It's nothing to write home about. I know in some cities they have a substantial amount of power supply, but if you look at many other places, even in the city here in Abuja, we usually don't have. Sometimes we manage to get light maybe 6 hours a day. Sometimes it doesn't stay, it just come, it goes. And when I was growing up as a baby, and there will be light. So when light goes off and light comes in, we shout, they brought light, hey, NEPA. Now I'm getting old, I'm coming of age. I don't expect that to still be happening now, especially when you are in Abuja.
It's nothing to really write home about, because I'm surprised that they came up with this banding system where they claim some people will be having power for 20 hours, 16 hours. But as far as I'm concerned, maybe it's just a way of getting some people to pay more. Because for us, in my area, we're in Band B, and we don't even get light for days. And yet you say it's Band B. So for me, I think the interest of the power company is what is being protected.
Based on my experience on how I met the electricity there was very, very bad, really, because they actually don't get light for more than 2 to 3 hours.
My experience our side, I think is a little bit good, but not like before. As of last year December, we're more like having frequent electricity. I think I can say we had electricity for up to like 15 hours a day last year December, but now it's not as it used to be, though it's just like a minimal decline in the way they give us electricity. But
the residents here at the Federal Capital Territory are calling on the government, particularly the Minister of Power, to hasten the process in restoring power to the darkened area of the city and the country. Edikan Michael reporting for Global TV News.
All right, and I'll be asking us this question: how is the electricity in your own location? Well, I guess that's food for thought, and that's the much we can take on the program Inside Today. Join me same time tomorrow. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you all so much for being there. Bye-bye.